Welcome back to the Ignite Your Spark podcast. I am so excited for this episode today because we have a very special guest, Rachel Morrison, who is a health coach and personal trainer. So, Rachel, do you just want to give a little bit of background and what it is you do?
So I am predominantly an online coach. I work with women, mainly around food freedom and syncing with their menstrual cycle, really focusing on kind of harnessing the power of their cycle because I feel like as someone who was on birth control for 11 years, the minute I came off, all of the identity that I had built for myself while being on birth control just came crashing down. I had no idea who I was. So I've kind of found that actually by helping women with that is exactly where I found my power. So I kind of help them find theirs. I've been within the fitness industry since 2015. So I've seen it change a lot as well. So I've seen it go from being, that famous Kate Moss saying that nothing tastes as good as skinny feels to then all of a sudden body positivity, eat everything that you want, whenever you want. And now coming into that phase of being more health focused and gut health focused and hormone health focused. And yeah, I feel like it's been a really nice progression, a really nice journey over the years. I do feel very lucky that actually I've been in it, I'd say, through a lot of different phases
Yeah.
because I then work with those women and help them based on where they've been, knowing that I've been there myself.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. And this topic, especially around hormonal health, which is what we're going to obviously be diving into,
Mm,
and really working with your cycle and not against it, especially when it comes down to like productivity as well. Like it's something that I've been focusing on a lot for the last couple of months and just making small changes and tweaks and really being in tune and understanding your body. It's just such a game changer. So that's why I'm
yeah.
just so excited for this episode tonight. So just starting off by that in terms of obviously the hormonal side of it, do you want to kind of just give a little bit of maybe the science behind it in terms of the different phases that that us women go through?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, like this is I know it's very much of it's becoming a hot topic and rightly so, because if you take it all the way back to like the original 28-day cycle and the way that everyone lives, we currently all live within a 24-hour circadian rhythm. We wake up in the morning and we go to sleep in the evening. And that is a very masculine way of living. The way that our hormones work is they fluctuate throughout, well, it varies between 25 days, I think, 25 to 28, up to 35 days. So the actual percentage of women who have the quote unquote normal cycle of 28 days is actually only 12.4%. Most people don't have that normal cycle that we are then boxing people into. But the reason we kind of stick, well, or have been sticking with the 24 hours is because with the male hormones, the testosterone and progesterone and all of those ones, they fluctuate throughout the day. Men are very lucky when it comes to that kind of thing. They do have that 24 hours, really nice and semi-stable. Whereas us as women, we know, or we're learning, and we get to
Mm.
know that there are peaks and troughs based on where our estrogen is, where our progesterone is. We've also got testosterone. And of course, not forgetting things like cortisol and insulin that also affects our cycle across 28 days. And actually, the minute we're tapping into that, we can then almost feel guilt free, but actually be able to say, right, okay, if I'm in menstruation, so we'll go with the first 7 days. So this is your bleed. This is also known as your winter, where you know that your progesterone and your testosterone and your estrogen are all low, then actually you know that you can give yourself a little bit more grace and you can rest. Because after those first, depending on how long you bleed, could be 5 days, could be seven. Again, every single woman's cycle is different. There is no two people that have exactly the same. So after the spring, after the menstruation, you go into your follicular phase, which is your spring. So obviously think winter into spring. This is where estrogen starts to, it hasn't peaked yet, but it starts to rise. This is when you start having more energy. This is when you start to feel like think spring, think flowers. This is when you're like, yeah, okay, I'm coming alive now. I've done my hibernation. I've been in my cocoon. This is me now almost stepping up. I'm stepping into my power. I've let go of everything that I needed to, and I'm coming into the spring. Following on from the spring, you then have your summer, which is ovulation, and this can also vary. One of my favorite things about ovulation is actually if you are someone who doesn't have a quote unquote regular cycle, so you don't have a bleed, you can actually use your ovulation to figure out where you are in your cycle because your discharge will change. This is where your estrogen is peaking. This is when you are firing on all cylinders. This is when you feel like your absolute best self. And this is when you feel like you can effectively take on the world. This is when you make PBs in the gym. This is when you make all of those boss girl decisions within your business. This is when you're going into work and your boss is like, wow, you've done your to-do list already? Like, what's happening? That's because your estrogen is at its peak. This is when you feel like, rightly so, you can take on the world. People often call it your Beyonce hormone, because then when you
I
are
love
at that
that.
peak, you're like, that peak, you're in your Beyonce phase. And then following on from your summer, obviously, we then go into our winter. So that then becomes our luteal. This is again then where estrogen starts to drop, but this is where the progesterone and the testosterone start to rise. So the progesterone itself is the leading hormone within the luteal phase, and that's often the hormone that drives behind PMS, behind anxiety. So if you are out of balance with your hormones, if you have too much of it, that's when you start noticing problems like being bloated all the time, having really painful cramps, that lead up week where you're having those mood swings and you just want to hurt everyone that gets in your way. And this is where it's your time to, autumn, slow down, the leaves are changing. You can really focus on almost coming back to you before going again into that winter and starting the phase all over again.
Yeah, I love the seasonal analogy.
Analogy.
I
An
think the
analogy.
seasons
Yeah.
feel more feminine,
Mhm.
like I'm a girl who loves science. Like I love the science behind it. I love the fact that you've got your menstrual followed by your follicular, followed by ovulation, followed by your luteal. But that to me still feels quite masculine. So
Mm.
if I'm then working with my cycle, I do like using the seasons because actually you can go, yeah, I am in my winter. And
Mm.
actually, people instantly know, okay, cool, you're resting, hibernating, you're letting go of everything that you may have picked up in the cycle that doesn't work for you. And it also, I think as well, it makes that stigma around talking about your menstrual cycle feel less icky because you don't
Yeah.
have to necessarily explain what menstruation means or explain what follicular means. Because actually, if you say to someone, yeah, I'm in my spring, they can go, oh, okay, so she's coming out. Maybe this is the time to make plans with friends. This is the time to go and get your hair done before going into your summer and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's something that I've really been focusing on, even in my own personal, world, if you like.
Mm,
And when you start to adapt this into your business or into even your personal life, and it's like looking at that time and thinking, right, I've got a hell of a lot of social plans going on. But if you kind
hmm
of work it around your cycle, you'll feel so much better, like you said. And I really like Lisa said, that analogy of the working with the spring, the summer, the autumn, and the winter, because like you said, it has got that feminine touch to it as well. And you can
hmm
really, rather than, because a lot of us, a lot of the time is, being in this like hamster wheel grind, if you like,
Yeah.
sometimes that we was talking about, it's very easy to get lost in that. And it's like when you
Yeah.
come away and reset, and like I said, it's working with your cycle and not up against
Mm.
the grain constantly.
The thing is as well, like, and this is what I don't think everyone quite realizes yet, is actually when you are within that harmony of your cycle and you are well balanced and you're noticing that you're having the same regular cycle, the same moods, the same energy consistently throughout, you actually can have prolonged periods of being, like you say, Bex, on the hamster wheel. Because actually your body is in a state of, well, I'm balanced. So if I know that
Yeah.
this is a push season, a push period, then I can work through that. But I also know that I need to include rest days in between to honor where I'm at.
Yeah,
because it does work the
absolutely.
same for exercise as well. There is a lot of noise out there that are very much like, if you're in your if you're in your menstruation phase, you should be resting. So think walking, yoga, Pilates. But actually, if you are balanced enough, you can go and do a strength session in the gym because you know what you can do. Just take a couple of days extra to recover.
Yeah, or even reduce the weight and, like you said, make it
Yeah.
less intense. That's a really good point, actually, because we do hear that a lot in terms of, and like when people get really bad stomach cramps around that time and they've got things, that it's not a normal sign, is it? So it's kind of
No.
looking at what you can do to help with that. So speaking on that in terms of like nutrition, like well, not just nutrition, but what would you recommend to really help harness those different phases, and like what would you include and add to your diet maybe, or to your routine?
So I honestly think, and what I've noticed within myself is the best thing to do for the general public is to take it all the way back to basics. Focus on eating good quality protein, even if it's veggie or vegan protein, like as long as it's a good quality source, that protein and those amino acids are actually going to help your body, especially in the menstruation phase. It's going to help your body repair and things like that. And then you can go into adding in your veggies and adding in your carbs and making sure that you always include a fat within your meal as well, because actually we have fat soluble hormones within us that need the fat to actually be able to be produced within our system. So if you're not having the fat at your meals, you're almost hindering yourself because you're not creating those vitamins and those hormones and things that need it. In terms of what to have specifically, for me personally, I found that there's only really during my luteal phase, so my autumn, the lead up to my menstruation, that's when I would go down the road of, okay, I definitely know that I need to cut back on sugar, I need to cut back on caffeine, I need to cut back on those things that almost make me feel a little bit more anxious, maybe a little bit more on edge, because that's when I know that I need to be nurturing myself from a nutrition standpoint. So you want to eat things like sweet potatoes, you want to have your dark leafy greens, and you want to supplement with things that actually are going to support you, like iron, having high iron foods. So your spinach, you can have steaks and things like that. But I would say across the whole cycle, if you are focusing on the basics, having things like good quality protein, so you've got your fish, you've got lentils if you're vegan or veggie, you've got red meat, your poultry, eggs, all of those kind of things. In terms of your veggies, I don't think you can go wrong with having any type of veggie at any type of your cycle, really, because your body's going to thrive off of those vitamins and minerals that come with it. And then in terms of the carbs, if the carbs always come third, you want to think about having your slow release carbs. So your oats, you want to think about kind of having couscous, things like sweet potatoes, white potato, having wheat even. I know everyone talks about being gluten free and things like that, but you don't necessarily have to go down that route if you aren't celiac or gluten intolerant. You can still have those things within your cycle. One of the things that I've quite recently learned about actually is seed cycling. And because I'm currently in the middle of my cycle, I am not sure whether it's actually working yet. There is quite a bit of science behind it, but I'm still learning about it, where in your first half of your cycle, so from day one of your bleed up until ovulation, you can have sunflower seeds and flax seeds. No, it's
Right.
pumpkin seeds and flax seeds. Now I always have to remember that one because F for follicular, F for flax seeds. I've had to put them in two
Right.
separate jars so I
Okay.
can work it out. And though I'm not sure exactly what they do, but they support part of the hormones within that first stage of the cycle. And then after ovulation, you can switch into your sesame seeds and your sunflower seeds. So from ovulation up until, again, day one, so your last day of your cycle, which then support the second half of your hormones. But like I said, I've only just literally learned that one. So I'm in the phase of trialing it myself as to see whether it works or doesn't. There's probably
Mm.
someone listening here who's like, oh my God, yeah, I've done that and it works.
My goodness. I've
But
never actually heard of, have you, Lisa? Seed
No,
cycling?
no, not at all. No, but I'm
No,
gonna
yeah,
look into it
there's
now.
it is,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's one of those, I think it's one of those things as well, because like for me personally, I wouldn't think about adding seeds into my diet,
Mm.
but I'm also that kind of person that's like, if I can support my cycle in any way as a woman, this is my natural way of being, why not try it and see
Yeah.
what happens?
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. I mean, to be fair, I do kind of incorporate a lot of like seeds and things. Like I'll have flax seeds
Mm,
in my overnight oats, or I'll have like chia seeds in my smoothie, and like sometimes like sunflower seeds on top of like my yogurt, and granola. But
mm,
it's so easy to add to, because you literally you can pop them in a smoothie, can't you? Or you could just
yeah.
like add it to your yogurt. That's really interesting. I'm definitely going to take that away for today for sure. I love that. So that's really interesting. So in terms of like, if you're dealing with like clients that you've got, especially like in your business at the moment, is there any particular like issues that they come to you with in terms of like, are they struggling with their hormones? Like, how do they know when they're like out of whack, if you like?
Most of the time that I see with clients that I work with is it's the feeling fatigued throughout their cycle when they should potentially have more energy. So say around ovulation, they're feeling more tired and they're feeling that they can't really pull themselves together, but also the bloating and the cramps that lead up to it, and almost the feeling of being anxious and uncomfortable within their body, because actually when you're not in harmony within your cycle, you are almost working against your natural biology as a woman.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time it is that low energy, it's the bloating, it's what you hear a lot of, even though they're not normal
Mhm.
symptoms, they are common, which is almost why people then think, oh, they are normal because everyone
Mm.
has them. But
Yeah.
actually, as a woman, your cycle is something that your body should be able to do with ease. It is something that should be celebrated because it's part of your physiology.
Mm.
So if you are having those symptoms, yes, where they are common, they don't have to be your normal.
Yeah. And that's true. That's a very good point, because it's so common. It's like people normalize their symptoms. And
Hmm.
that is something I've been talking a lot about recently, because obviously I'm so into gut health, as you know. And
Mm,
it's like, don't normalize these symptoms. Like, just because everybody seems to have them or after eating certain foods and things, it's not really normal. And you
yeah.
shouldn't normalize it. And it's really interesting. I actually I was working with a health coach at the beginning of the year, and I had a mineral test, because I was showing signs of burnout and I could feel myself getting to that point. And it was when I went for a mineral test, and now all my minerals came back completely out of whack. And it's
Oh,
something that I've
wow.
never really looked into before. So I was showing signs and symptoms of adrenal fatigue. And then when I got my mineral test back, it was like my calcium was like through the roof and it was dominant. And then all of my other minerals, I was like depleted in everything. And I was like, my goodness, I eat such a
Mm.
varied
Mm,
diet. I fill it with nutrients, and yes, I was doing a lot, I was doing a lot of work behind the scenes and everything. And it was only when I actually got that data back where I was like, my goodness, I really need to start making some changes, even though
yeah.
I felt like I was going down this like healthy path, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I say to all of my clients, like, you are your best experiment.
Yeah.
If one thing works for someone, it might not necessarily work for you. So if I use myself, for example, a lot of people out there in terms of what to eat for your cycle say to obviously prioritize fat, because as females, we need more fat within our diet. But because of the way that I work, like within my business, and the way that I exercise, like I'm a runner and I lift heavy weights, like I do a lot all the time, my body needs those carbs to keep myself going. So
Yeah.
when I go on a low fat, low carb diet, I actually then
Mm.
end up feeling worse because my
Yeah.
body specifically can't cope with it. But
Mm.
I've had clients who can reduce their carbs, because I would never say cut the carbs out anyway, because your body and your brain's preferred fuel source is carbohydrates. But if you were to reduce it and switch up your macros and have a higher fat percentage within your day, and that's where they thrive, then that shows that that's their cycle, their body, their blueprint as
Yeah.
such is
Uh,
written differently.
and this is what I love about your work, Rachel, because you are so holistic in your coaching, and like you really do give that bird's eye view, and it's, you know, it's not just about the weight training or the cardio that you do and everything. It's about that whole like holistic view, like you said, and looking at the hormones. And like you said, because once your hormones are out of whack, like all your system is as well, like you just, and you end up being in this constant fight or flight response, don't you, all of the time, because you just completely. So it's really, I just love that like I said, that the work that you do, I just find it's so important for especially females as well. No, it is, it's true, because it's like you hear so many things out there, don't you, like don't eat carbs, and you know, people get scared of eating carbs, and it's like actually your body thrives off them, it needs them.
And especially if you are a woman who is also really keen to do all of the exercise and things like that, especially through every stage of your cycle. You know, if you want to go for a run while you're menstruating, if you feel like you can, then you can. You know, because there are other ways that you can take care of your body, and one of them is fueling properly.
Absolutely, it's so interesting. Lisa, have you got anything that you want to ask Rachel? Because I know you like this topic.
And I have got, this is like a dream situation, like I'm having you to myself to ask these questions. But so I, similar to you, I've been on the pill now for coming up to 15 years. And so when I hear all of these things, so I'm on a pill where you don't bleed for 3 months at a time. So how, like, I try to learn as much as possible, but I'm like, how much does that apply to me when, like you said, like with ovulation, that you can kind of like check your cycle like that. But is there any suggestions that you have for someone who's on the same path?
So I've had clients before, actually, funnily enough, on the pill for actual health reasons rather than kind of avoiding their cycle and things like that. And one of the things that I always say is track your mood and track your energy, because even though, depending on which pill you're on, because obviously that will be putting hormones into your system, so it can flatline a lot of the hormones, chances are you'll still get moods and you'll still have energy peaks and troughs based on where you are within the month. And the reason I say about ovulation is because ovulation is usually, so to anyone who's listening, I am about to talk about discharge. If you are like that person who's like, I can't listen to this, then you'll want to skip past this bit. But so ovulation usually happens on around about 1 or 2 days, and you can tell exactly when it is because the discharge looks like egg whites. So obviously think ovulation, eggs, it looks like egg whites, right? I know, honestly, when I found this out, my brain was like, that makes so much sense. So like throughout your cycle, because as women, our discharge changes throughout our cycle anyway. And I don't know if you were like me, when I was on birth control, I was just thinking, this stuff is just annoying. What is it doing?
Pretty much since I was like 13.
Constantly just there. But actually, it's a sign of being fertile. And if you have those ovulation windows where your discharge has noticeably changed into the egg white consistency, that's when you can go, oh, cool. So that's my ovulation day. And it might be 1 or 2 days. It might be across 4 days. It varies, obviously, from woman to woman. But from that point, you can then break away of, oh, cool, I'm in my summer. How's my energy? Am I high? Am I firing on all cylinders? Do I feel like I can step into my greatest, highest self? Or am I feeling really low? Am I feeling really lethargic? Like, is something not quite feeling right? Because realistically, around ovulation, you should be feeling really flirty, because as much as we like to admit that we are smarter than the caveman days, which in some ways we are, the body is not. The body is still very simple. It's still very, I mean, it's clever, of course, but it hasn't evolved much from that. Ovulation, the whole point of ovulation was reproduction. Whether you want to have children or not, that is the reality of it. So from that specific point, knowing where your energy is and where your mood is, that's when you can then go, oh, cool, I can then break this out into sections. And then say if you wanted to give yourself the average 28 days, you can then break it up, divide it by 4 and spread it out across your cycle, track your mood, track your energy, and actually then be able to see whether it does match up with where you ought to be or whether it doesn't, and make changes accordingly.
Okay. And then going back a bit, you touched on it a bit earlier, but like as a business owner, as someone who takes their professional career very seriously and is trying to speed through it as much as possible. How do you literally, like, if you have like a presentation, we'll say, or something like that, or like something like this, will you purposely plan it around when you know you're going to be higher energy? Like if someone's trying to book it in when you're like peak low times, are you trying to shuffle it around just to really lean into both side effects as much as possible?
So I think this is quite a controversial topic because I personally wouldn't, but that's because I know how I can do certain like raising vibration tactics, how I can kind of put myself in an energy of giving and in an energy of serving without actually feeling like I'm emptying out my cup too much. So I can kind of go through my cycle and be able to still, I call it peopling. I still be able to people
Yes.
throughout my whole cycle. But then there are some people out there who are very much like, "Do you know what, this is my luteal phase, this is my autumn, this is where I'm winding down, this is where I want to close off all my projects, and this is where I want to finish my to-do list." And some people find that that works really well for them, and it
It's just
does.
knowing
And
yourself.
and I think this is where the whole holistic approach, the whole mind, body, soul, everything, it all comes together. Because I mean, Bex and I both being fans of human design, as a man gen, I'm firing on all cylinders pretty much all the time. I know that about myself. So being able to combine the two then means that actually, if I have a project coming up, I can give myself a little bit of grace, of course, because I know where I'm at. But also at the same time, I can go into it being like, right, this is what I want to achieve. I will do my best on that day, even if it's only 10%, because I've still done my best.
I love that. And I'm a projector. So I'm like talking about human design. So
Mm,
I need to rest a
yeah.
lot more, which when I obviously start, I mean, we're going off topic here a little bit, but let's just go with it. So when we was looking at human design, like when I first discovered it, I honestly read all the profiles and I was like, I'm 100% generator. 100%, because
Oh, wow.
that was how I lived my life, like this
Yeah.
constant go go go. Like I can remember way back when I used to like live up in Manchester. I used to work for the NHS. I used to go after work and had a bar job. I used to work in the bars at the weekend. I never
Cool.
stopped, like literally physically never stopped. And
Mm.
it was only the last couple of years. And I was like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm not
Like,
surprised.
I was
I'm not
literally so
surprised.
exhausted. And even now, obviously, like, managing different things and
Mm.
really understanding that element of it and bring it, like, that's why I just love learning about so many different topics and modalities and things like human design, because you can really start to implement it. And they say human design is a guide, and I do believe that, but I've really started to nurture myself, like you said, during those latest, like the winter stage of your cycle,
Yeah.
like based on the projector profile, and it's working wonders. Like it really is for me. So now I know, like going to your question, Lisa, like I personally do tend to plan things. Sometimes it can't be helped because business is business and
Yeah.
events happen, but I do try to plan certain things around that time because I know I'm going to be, like you said, firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
But that's also because I also do the work in terms of the mindset, the nutrition, the movement. And I feel like after lots of experiments and trying different things and hitting burnout and coming back out again and hitting burnout again, it's like I might finally at a place where it's an ongoing journey. You're always learning, but at a place
Yeah.
where it's like I'm comfortable with where I'm at and I feel like I'm
Yeah.
managing things a lot better, and it's learning about all these different things. So yeah, I could talk about this topic all day. I
Well,
just
it's
love.
like you say, it goes so much deeper because actually, when you're, say, for example, you're working in a employment setting and you're around other people, you're not just taking on your energy, you're also taking on the energy of everyone else around you.
Yeah.
So if you're in your menstruation in your winter and you're feeling low and you're feeling tired because you are bleeding, but then you've got everyone else around you, maybe someone else is also bleeding. I mean, you might not know, but maybe someone else is in their summer, so they're all firing on all cylinders. You're also taking on other people's energies.
Yeah.
So even if you are aware of where you are at your cycle, I do think sometimes it is unavoidable anyway because of who you're around.
Yeah.
We pick up things. We are sponges. Humans are sponges, not just with information, but also with energies and vibrations, and even being in certain places. You could be in certain places within a
Yeah.
country, within a town, within a city, and you can feel off, or you can feel like you're absolutely thriving.
Yeah. That is so, honestly, I've just literally been to a concert at the weekend, and the next day I fell off. And I know it's
Yeah.
because I was in such a large crowd of people, but I'm
Mhm.
aware of that now. So I sometimes have to think, this isn't me. This is what I've absorbed and picked up from
Yeah.
wherever I've been. And it's understanding that and not thinking, God, I'm feeling really flat today. What's wrong? And nothing's wrong. It's just the fact that, like you said, you do absorb it.
Yeah, and this is where going back to the menstrual cycle, you can then lean into that as your power to say, actually, if I am in a phase that isn't going to allow me to be my best self or have the most amount of energy, you can say no, you know?
Yeah.
I think personally, I think that having your menstrual cycle as your guiding light is actually just a way of allowing you to live your life guilt-free, to be able to say no, to be able to set boundaries, to
Mm.
be able to say, actually, this doesn't work for me, more than knowing where you are in your cycle and knowing what mood's going to hit you tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, I just love it. Honestly, I could
I know
honestly
it's
sit here
so,
and listen.
it
It
can
really
go,
is.
honestly, it can go so deep. It really can,
It
because I
can,
think it's
yeah.
just, it's one piece of the puzzle. And I
Yeah.
think as women as well, like, we are so lucky to have this thing within us that no one can take away. You know,
Mm.
we will, I mean, up until obviously menopause, and then it's a different story. But we do have this inner power that is guiding us all the time that
Yeah.
we can use, yes, to our advantage. Why not? You know, men have used everything they've got to their advantage for God knows how
All of
long.
that.
So, yeah, why can't we as women say, actually, do you know what? This is where I'm at in my cycle. I mean, you don't even have to mention that. You don't even have to mention it. You could literally have someone email you, like, I need X, Y, and Z done by ABC. And you can know, actually, it's not going to work for me. I'm going to need a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
you're
like
right. Yeah.
communicating that, like,
Yeah.
and it's the awareness of that, knowing yourself, and then just communicating it, not being
Yeah.
afraid to lean into it, because for so long, like literally what, until like maybe 2 years ago, then it's this hush hush subject that you don't talk about. It's something that we don't like about ourselves. It's that women have to deal with, when
Yeah.
actually flip it, change the perspective, use it to your advantage, because you can. It's just
Yeah.
that knowledge perspective, like gaining a knowledge, trial and error to see what works for you, because
Yeah.
there's 3 different women on these call, and like we're all going to have different things that work for us, and it's just
Yeah.
leaning into that and finding what works for you and then running with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, and Rico, like my partner as well, like he knows my cycle stages now.
So
Like
does
honestly,
mine.
and it's like, because he's in the military and he's like, right, week 3, I am going to be on exercise. I will not be home. It's like week 1, week 2, it's fine. You love me, and
But that this is the thing, because then when you can share it with other people as well, you know that you know whether to be avoided or not. You know, I only ever tend to have 1 or 2, I would say, bad quotation marks days where I just like cry into my porridge for breakfast. But the next day I'm like, I'm all right today. God knows what happened yesterday. But I will know that once I've had those 1 or 2 days, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the other thing. The other thing is, people spend so much time trying to eliminate all of the fatigue, all of the bloating, all of the cramps and everything. But not every single cycle is going to be perfect. I think if you spend all of your time trying to eliminate everything that you deem wrong, you almost tire yourself out even more, because you then stop yourself from living. You effectively want to get to a place where what you're doing every day isn't being affected negatively by where you are in your cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point as well. That's a definitely, it's just, I just feel like so many people, even men, are going to get value from this. So if there are any men listening to this, I really think you've got some key points to take away about understanding the women's hormonal health. So Rachel, if there is one thing that, obviously based on what we've discussed, like one piece of advice that you would give, you know, to whoever's listening or somebody on this journey, what would it be?
I would say that the biggest piece of advice is take the time to get to know yourself, and actually don't worry about it not being perfect. You
Yeah.
know, you are going to have I don't even know how many exact cycles you're going to have, but it's a lot, I can tell you that much. And actually, if you take the time to get to know who you are, what your mood is, what your energy is, the things that you like, things that you don't like, because it does change as well. Like going back to you, Lisa,
Yeah.
and being on birth control, the person you are now, when you stop, could potentially be someone completely different.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
You know,
interested when you said that everything changed, and that
so I went
piques my
on it.
interest a lot.
I went on it when I was 16, and I came off it a year ago, actually, a year ago plus 2 months. So this is a very new journey to me too.
Okay.
And I kid you not, the first, I'd say 2 months, every single negative thought I had about my body, about myself, about what I wanted to do in the world, how I was showing up, the things that I was trying to commit to, all felt completely wrong.
Oh,
It was
wow.
really weird,
Yeah.
really weird.
Oh, gosh.
All of my negative body image, like I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I was like, I don't know who this person is. I'm just doing all of these things that aren't me. It
Oh
was
my
it was
gosh.
really bizarre. It was really
Yeah.
bizarre.
And then did it ease? Was it because it was such like a harsh transition? Your body was like, where's this thing gone that we're used to? And then like it kind of eased out, or was it like a new like self-discovery of this is my mind when it's not interrupted by this external crap?
It was very much like a self-discovery. It was very much oh, okay, actually, these are my thoughts. Are these the thoughts that I want to run with, or do I want to change them?
Mm.
Because I mean, when I went on it, it was very much a time that, I mean, God, like when I was 15, 16, it was very much, I think Instagram had just about come
Yeah.
out, and it was very much when everyone was being fitness influencers, and it was bikini competitions. I was following a lot of bikini competitors, and it was very much the time where I was like, must do all the exercise and try and shrink myself really small and all of that kind of stuff. And then actually when I came off of because I had the pill first, so I had the pill for 10 years, and then I had the coil, the Mirena coil, and I was very much like, all of these thoughts that are coming back, I actually don't think they're mine. I think they're what I've learned over the years while being on birth control. And my brain has kind of gone, yeah, that sounds like a good thought. I'm going to take that one. Well, that sounds
Wow.
like a good idea. I'm going to run with that. And like, even to the point where I had my dream job back in January 2020, came off of the coil in July 2022, and realized that actually my dream job wasn't the dream job that I wanted. It was like those kind of moments where you're like, as dramatic as it sounds, I am a bit dramatic, but it did feel like this at the time. It was literally like, is everything that I'm doing what I genuinely wanted to, or what my hormones were creating within me?
Wow. And that's it, because our hormones have such an
Mm-hmm.
impact on every single aspect of everything we do. So of course something that detrimental to us could have such an impact. And I hear this from so many people. They say once you come off, you won't go back. It's such a revolutionary thing. If you don't mind me asking, what do you use for birth control now? Do you use natural?
So I use natural cycles, but the more I learn about it, the more I'm kind of thinking, do I really need to? Because actually I think it's something like there's only 6 days out of your cycle, once it's fully like harmonized and balanced, that you can actually get pregnant anyway. And I mean, I'm that kind of person that's not going to risk it. So, I'm going to wrap it. So
I don't want to be the guinea pig. Thank you.
I quite like natural cycles, just from a perspective of, it tells me when I'm going to ovulate. It tells me when my period is coming. And most of the time it's pretty bang on. Like, I'm quite impressed. But because obviously birth control being a thing that I definitely need at the moment, that was the one that I was drawn most to.
It's the best alternate option out there. From whenever I like get a bee in my bonnet, I'm like, right, I'm coming off, don't want to do this anymore, let's see what's out there. It's always the one that everyone refers to. And then every time I'm just like, I'm not ready yet. But
do you know what though, because I thought that as well, but so towards the end of my coil, I don't know if my body started rejecting it or if it would just knew that it was like running out of hormones or whatever. I have no idea. But I came on 4 times within the space of 8 weeks, and I had the
Oh.
worst stomach cramps. And I was like, this thing needs to just get out of me. Like, I need it out, to the point where I was like, I'm this close to pulling it out myself.
Ripping it out.
Yeah. So it was almost
Yeah.
like my body knew
It's time.
that it needed to come out, but I was very much the same, Lisa. Like, I was very much like, oh, birth control, like I've still got my life to live, like I'm not definitely
Yes.
not ready for kids yet. So I was instantly like, right, we'll go on natural cycles, because again, that was the one that was recommended to me. But actually, it's been a really nice transition to be able to go, actually, there are other alternative methods out there. Like, if you don't want to use natural cycles, you really don't have to, because realistically, at the end of the day, you're just tracking your basal temperature
Yes.
first thing in the morning, and then that allows you to know where your ovulation is and whereabouts in your cycle you are. But I personally don't even look at that number. I just take my temperature, and my app tells me like it's a red day.
Yeah, good to go. Not okay. Oh, food for thought. This is
That's it,
sparked it
Lisa's
again.
gonna be. I was gonna
I
say
know,
she's
I know.
gonna be.
And do you know what? I'm that kind of person that's like, I can tell you from my experience that coming off birth control was one of the best decisions.
Yeah,
But I'm
everyone
also
says.
the kind of coach that I am. I'm not going to turn around and say like it's the decision that you should do too. You know, like if someone came to me and they were like, oh, I'm on birth control, I wouldn't be that person that's like, oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
like, no, like everyone has their reasons for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure like people will disagree with me, like, no, everyone should come off it because you don't know what you're putting extra hormones in your body, you don't know what it's doing to you, blah, blah, blah. Where, yes, that's the case in some. There are periods in our life, like I needed it, you know?
Yeah.
16-year-old me was not thinking about being sensible, you know?
And that's it. Like, I started it because I suffered really badly with acne when I was younger, and I must have tried like 10 different things to
Yeah.
sort it out, like ointments and treatments and all of this stuff. Like, I tried like 3 different pills, and I think this is why I'm like not that inclined to look up elsewhere, because I get on seamlessly with my
Yeah.
pill. Like, been on the same one, it works like a dream. It's all as well. So I'm kind of like, don't mess with if it works. But
Yeah.
also, like, I'm getting to that age now, like, you've got to look after your reproductive system, and hormones, the more that they're like, the bigger they're getting, the more I hear
Yeah.
about it, then naturally I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should explore different things. But
Well, because the decision for me to come off was the fact that I wanted to give my body time to find its natural rhythm before then having children. I was worried that if I stayed on it any longer, I would be in a position where I would then be adding 1, 2, 3 years, who knows,
yeah,
to how long it would take to actually then get pregnant, to have my normal cycle, my normal hormones back.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I was very much like, oh, okay, I would rather take the time to get that all in good working order, let's say, rather than put something else in my system. But similar to your story, Lisa, like I went on the pill originally because I had really bad PMS and really bad period pain, to the point where I'd bleed so heavily that I just couldn't move around. I'd be in agony. My lower stomach would just feel like it was being completely ripped out. And I was like, I just need to go on the pill just to make it stop.
Just to ease it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, people that I've spoken to for similar reasons, it's like, even if it just made it 10% better, it was worth it, because it was so like horrifically painful. And this is why our cycle and the hormones have such a bad rep, because like, especially in our teenage years and pubescent and stuff like that, like what it puts our body through, and the array of emotions that we go through for like a 10-year span, is that like naturally we've all got negative connotations, but like, no, as we work our way through, and if we had that awareness and the knowledge that we have now back then, like, imagine how much of a healthier relationship we would have with our bodies.
Well, 100%. Because if I look back now as well, and I think to myself, right, what was my cycle like before I went on birth control? Well, of course it would be out of whack, because I was binge eating on tubs of Nutella and biscuits every single night. Like, I'm dosing my body on really high sugar. Of course it's going to struggle when it comes to my menstrual cycle, because I'm not fueling it properly.
You
know, but that being at that time, you know, in my life, that's where I was at. So of course, for me, the option was, we'll go on birth control, because that's what I thought would be
It was the
the
quick fix for
solution.
things
Yeah.
back then.
And
It
to
really
be fair,
was.
like it really was.
And it did help.
I'm never going to be that person that thinks it has a bad place. I'm genuinely not, because at the end of the day, like, it served a purpose. It served a purpose for when I needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
coming off it really did bring me back to me, and I'm really grateful for that. But at the same time, would I have come off it any sooner? No, probably not. That's why I went from pill to coil.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, we've learnt so much tonight, Rachel. Honestly,
Oh,
thank
honestly, I
you.
could talk about it for hours. Like, I feel like
Amazing.
we're literally like scratching the surface. There's so much to it.
It's amazing. So just tell me, what is it you're doing in your business now, and what are your plans going forward?
So right now, so anyone listening to this, it's currently August 30th. It's 10 weeks until, no, that's a lie. It's 11 weeks until my 30th birthday. So right here, right now, I'm running a mini program for myself called Project 30, which is all about working with my cycle, working out a consistent amount of days during the week. It's doing mindset work around my food, around my body, around my mindset and things like that. All with the idea that by the time I go into my 30th year on this planet, I will be in my best physical, mental, and spiritual shape. Like, there's just no hiding from it. And funnily enough, actually, like, it's not anything major at the moment, because, like, I think I said it before, I use myself as my best experiment. So by doing this, I can then go, do you know what, ladies? This works. Here, let me take you through this. And on the other end, you wouldn't even believe what kind of results you can get, because I've done it. And like, if I can, why can't you? And honestly, it's amazing. I say launched it. I told my community that I was running it, and I've got 10 girls doing their own little version. Like, I've called it Project 30. I've got one girl in it, she's doing Project 40. I've got someone else doing Project 32. Like, just as a little, like, accountability thing for keeping us together. And in future, we'll see if it goes into a course. I'll funnel it into my coaching anyway. I think it's working with the whole body. I'm a whole body person. Like, it's the approach that I take. We'll kind of see where that goes in terms of business come 2024.
It's so exciting. Honestly, when I saw this on your Instagram, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to do a Project 40, because I'm nearly like nearer to the end. I'm closer to 40 than I am 30, my goodness.
Well, do you know what? One of the things, like, and I don't know if it's hormone related, but when I was setting my goals for January, I was like, right, I've completely healed my relationship with food. I absolutely love and adore my body for what she does, the way she looks, everything. I was like, this is the year that I am going to shift all of the weight, all of the negative things, all of the limiting beliefs that I had picked up, not just through the big C, like, when we're sat at home doing nothing, we're met with our shadow selves, but actually what I kind of had picked up through my binge eating and through trying to do all of the things that I thought I should be doing, but actually, like I said, getting my dream job and then sitting there like, this isn't it. Like, crap, I've built this life for myself and actually it's the wrong one. So when I sat down in January, I was like, right, this is the year that I'm going to get in my best physical, mental, spiritual shape, because I do believe that actually your health is a direct reflection of your life. If you've got good health, you've got a good life, because actually you become more confident in yourself.
Yeah.
And then you show up differently. You show up differently in the world when you feel good. And I do think that health is that core thing that makes you feel good. Yes, you can listen to music, and yes, you can dance, and yes, you can do all of those kind of things. But actually, if you're waking up in the morning all bloated and sluggish and, really not liking what you look like in the mirror, chances are you need to prioritize your health.
Yeah. And I say this all the time. It's like your body is your vehicle. It gets you from A to B. Like, I say it all the time about investing in your health as well. Like, if your tire was to go on your car, you wouldn't think twice about going to the garage, paying for a new tire, because it's going to get you from A to B, but so is your body. Like, it's
I
your
love
vehicle.
that. I've never heard it like that, but that literally, like, light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Because I call mine, so my body is my home.
Yeah.
right? And imagine you're sat in your home and you walked in and you had just filled it with junk. There were just crisp packets everywhere. There was dust everywhere, cobwebs, spiders. Like, that's where you have to live. That's where your soul lives.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
your soul is housed in your body, why are you not treating it well?
Yeah. Oh, mic drop. Honestly,
I
it's
know.
so true.
Yeah.
So Rachel, tell us where people can find you. Like, tell us your socials.
So my socials, they're the same name across all of them. It's just Rachel Morrison, but with 2 N's at the end and then an underscore. I'm predominantly on Instagram. I am an Instagram junkie. I love it. I absolutely I'm on there all the time. Like, not even just scrolling, the amount of time, like the conversations that I have on Instagram are just incredible. I absolutely love not just the women and the men that I connect with about their health through Instagram. It's my favorite platform. I am making my way over to TikTok because I do love a good video and I do love a good vlog, but that one's taking its time to kind of take off because self-sabotage loves to get in the way when it comes to that kind of thing. But again, the handle is exactly the same. It's Rachel Morrison, 2 N's and an underscore. I'm currently building my website because that was another thing that I did. I built myself a whole website, I built myself a whole offer and got to the end of it, came to launch it and went, this isn't me. I have no idea what I'm launching. So website pending. January 2024, we'll have website and we'll have everything and it'll just be incredible because it's just been a whole rebirth 2023.
Amazing. Honestly, thank you so much for joining us tonight and just
sharing.
Thank you
so much for inviting me.
It's been amazing. We've really enjoyed it, and everything that you've said, I'm hoping that everyone is going to take at least one thing, well, more than one thing, I think, from this conversation. So thank you so much.
Honestly, thank you for having me on because I think actually there is still a lot of stigma around the conversations. People are still afraid to talk about it, and the more people that we can get talking about it, the more we can realize that actually this is just a normal thing. This is what literally 50% of the population have.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sing it loud and proud, ladies. Like, this is part of you.
Yeah, amazing.
Nothing to be scared of. Absolutely.
No, exactly.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure, honestly.